She saw something no one else did. Mia whispered to herself as she wiped down the counter, glancing over at the table where the man had been sitting. It was another busy evening at Le Petit Bistro, the kind of place where celebrities, CEOs, and millionaires dined in anonymity, surrounded by elegance and charm. Mia had been working here for 2 years, always in the background, always unseen, just another waitress among many. But tonight something was different. Travis Anderson sat at his usual spot by the window, his sharp eyes scanning the room as if he were analyzing the entire world. The billionaire CEO of Anderson Enterprises, with his perfectly tailored suit and cold, unreadable gaze, was a man used to controlling everything in his life. Mia had seen him countless times before, but tonight, something about him made her pause. He was distracted, fumbling with his phone, his fingers tapping nervously on the screen. She didn't know why, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had always been the quiet observer, never drawing attention to herself, never stepping out of line. But Mia noticed the little things. She noticed when the customers were upset, when they needed a drink refill, or when someone was about to make a mistake. It was part of her job, but tonight, she felt like she was seeing more than just the usual patterns. Travis leaned back in his chair, taking a long sip from his glass, his eyes flicking toward his phone again. Mia caught a glimpse of the message that had made his expression change. His face turned pale for just a moment before he hid it behind his phone. No one else seemed to notice. Everyone was too busy with their own orders, too caught up in their own world. Mia knew she had to do something. She walked past his table, her steps quiet, as she glanced at the contract he had been reading. Her trained eyes spotted it immediately, a detail so small that no one else would have noticed. A clause that could ruin everything for him. She paused, her heart racing. She didn't want to get involved, didn't want to stick her nose where it didn't belong. But she couldn't ignore it. Mia took a deep breath and turned back to him. "Excuse me, Mr. Anderson," she said, her voice steady but soft. He didn't look up right away, but when he did, there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Yes?" he asked, a little impatiently. "I believe you missed a detail in the contract," she said, her eyes never leaving his. "It could cost you." Travis froze, his expression hardening. He didn't like being interrupted, especially not by someone like her. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his tone more guarded now. "The clause on the last page," Mia said quietly. "It's a trap. You might want to take another look." For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, Travis picked up the contract again, his brow furrowing as he scanned the page. Mia stood still, holding her breath. He read the line, then glanced at her again, his eyes narrowed. "How do you know this?" he asked, his voice sharp. Mia didn't flinch. "I'm just a waitress, Mr. Anderson," she said calmly. "But sometimes, the people who seem invisible see things others don't." She walked away before he could say anything else, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what she had expected, maybe a thank you, maybe an apology, but nothing came. Still, as the night wore on, she could feel the weight of her actions. Maybe, for once, someone had actually noticed her. Mia kept her head down as she returned to her section, her movements precise and quick, almost mechanical. The moment had passed, and the world around her continued to spin. Customers chatted, clinked glasses, and ordered food as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. But for Mia, everything had changed in that brief moment. She tried to shake off the unease in her chest. She had only done what anyone would have done in her position. Yet, somehow, it felt like she had crossed an invisible line. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, and by the time the restaurant started to empty, Mia was still thinking about the look on Travis's face when she spoke up. He had looked confused, and maybe even a little bit impressed, but he didn't say anything. He had simply returned to his phone, only to leave a few minutes later. She didn't expect anything, yet she couldn't ignore the fact that his presence still lingered in the air. As the last of the guests left, Mia began cleaning the tables with a sense of calm she hadn't felt before. Her mind wandered back to the contract, to the small details she had noticed. It was funny, she had never thought of herself as someone who could spot these things. She was just a waitress, after all. But tonight she had been sharp, confident, and she had saved a man who barely even knew her name. The thought made her smile, a quiet, satisfied smile that no one could see. Just then, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, half expecting it to be one of the other staff members. Instead, it was Travis. He stood there, at the end of the hallway leading to the back of the restaurant, watching her with a look she couldn't quite place. "Mia, right?" he asked, his voice softer than before. She nodded, her hands still working, but now her heart was racing. I just wanted to thank you for pointing that out earlier," Travis continued. "You were right." His words hung in the air, unexpected and heavy. Mia looked up from her task, trying not to let her surprise show. She met his gaze for the first time that evening. His expression had softened, and she could see a flicker of something, genuine gratitude, maybe even a touch of respect. "I'm glad I could help," Mia replied, her voice steady, though her pulse quickened at the sincerity in his tone. Travis shifted on his feet, seeming a little unsure of what to say next. "I don't think I've ever met someone like you," he said, his tone almost reflective. "Most people would have just stayed out of it." Mia chuckled softly, wiping a glass clean. "Not everyone notices the little things," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but there was an edge to it, one of quiet pride. Travis nodded, a brief pause stretching between them. "You're not just a waitress, Mia," he said. His words caught her off guard, and for a moment she didn't know how to respond. But before she could gather her thoughts, he added, "I think I owe you more than a thank you. If you ever need anything, let me know." His voice was serious now, and there was an intensity behind his words that made Mia feel something shift inside her. She gave him a small smile, not out of politeness, but because something in her knew that this was not just about a small favor anymore. "I'll keep that in mind," she said, her voice steady as she met his gaze once again. Travis stood there for a moment longer, as if contemplating something, before turning to leave. Mia watched him go, her mind racing. She had never expected to be noticed, especially not by someone like him. Yet here she was, standing in a restaurant that felt a little different, a little quieter now that he was gone. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, she felt seen, truly seen, not just as a waitress, but as someone with something valuable to offer. The next few days passed by quickly, but Mia couldn't shake the encounter with Travis. It wasn't just the fact that he had thanked her or offered his help, it was the way he had looked at her, like he saw something more than just a waitress. She had spent the last few years trying to remain invisible, blending into the background of Le Petit Bistro, but now, she couldn't ignore the feeling that something had changed. It was subtle, but it was there. Every time she walked into the restaurant, she caught herself glancing over at Travis's usual spot, as if expecting to see him sitting there. And every time, she reminded herself that it didn't matter. She was just a waitress. She should focus on her work and nothing more. But the truth was, it was hard to ignore the fact that Travis had seen her. And not just as a server, but as someone who had helped him, someone who had made a difference, even if only for a moment. One evening, as the restaurant started to slow down, Mia was busy cleaning the tables when she heard her name. She looked up and saw Travis standing by the entrance, his coat slung over his shoulder. For a moment, she froze, unsure of what to do. He was no longer just the CEO who came in once in a while. He was someone who had acknowledged her, someone who had offered his support. "Mia," he called again, his voice carrying over the soft murmur of the remaining guests. "Could I have a word?" She nodded, wiping her hands on her apron as she made her way toward him. "Of course," she said, trying to keep her voice steady even though she could feel her heart racing. Travis smiled slightly, the familiar look of confidence still there, but there was something different in the way he looked at her now. "I wanted to ask you something," he said, his expression turning serious. "Would you consider coming to work for me? I know you're happy here, But I could really use someone like you. Someone who notices the things others miss. Mia blinked, her mind racing. I'm not sure I understand, she said, her voice barely a whisper. What do you mean? Travis shifted slightly, as if he were trying to find the right words. I mean that I see something in you, Mia. Something that others might overlook. You've got a sharp mind, and I think you'd be an asset to the company. Mia's heart pounded in her chest, but she couldn't find the words to respond. She had never imagined someone like Travis would offer her a job, let alone see her as more than just a waitress. I don't know what to say, she finally managed. I don't know if I'm qualified for something like that. Travis took a step closer, his voice softer now. You don't have to be qualified for everything, Mia. Sometimes, all it takes is the right perspective. Mia stood there for a long moment, her mind spinning. She had spent so many years working hard just to make ends meet, never thinking that someone like Travis might see her potential. But now, in this quiet moment, it felt like the world had shifted. She wasn't just a waitress. She was someone who could make a difference. I don't know, Mia said quietly, almost to herself. I'm not sure I'm ready for something like that. Travis smiled, a small, understanding smile that reached his eyes. Take your time, he said. But just know that the offer is there. As he turned to leave, Mia watched him walk out of the restaurant, her thoughts a whirl of confusion and possibility. Could she really do something more? Could she step out of the shadows and into a world where her skills were valued? She didn't know. But for the first time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was capable of more than she had ever thought. Mia couldn't stop thinking about Travis's offer. Every day, as she cleaned tables and served guests. At Le Petit Bistro, his words echoed in her mind. You've got a sharp mind, and I think you'd be an asset to the company. It had only been a week since that conversation, but the idea of leaving her job, her safe, familiar world, felt like a distant, almost impossible dream. But the more she thought about it, the more the thought of staying in the same place, doing the same thing, made her feel restless. She had spent so many years just getting by, never really stepping outside her comfort zone, and now that she was being offered a chance to do something different, she couldn't help but feel a tug of excitement mixed with fear. The restaurant was quieter than usual that night, the lull between dinner rush and closing time giving Mia a moment to think. She wiped down the counter, glancing at the clock. Another hour, and she'd be done for the day. The thought of going home to the same routine felt exhausting, yet the possibility of a new future, one where she wasn't invisible, was almost too tempting. As she moved to stack the chairs, she heard the soft click of the door opening. She looked up and saw Travis walking in. He was dressed in his usual business attire, looking every bit the powerful CEO he was. But today, there was something different in his expression. He wasn't just the aloof businessman from the other night. Today, there was a vulnerability in his eyes that Mia couldn't quite place. Mia, he said, his voice steady but softer than usual. She looked up, a little surprised to see him. I didn't expect you to be here this late, she said, setting down the chair she was holding. Just finishing up a few things, Travis replied. He glanced around the quiet restaurant before looking back at her. I've been thinking about what you said the other night. Mia froze, unsure of what to say. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable, she said quickly. I was just trying to help. Travis shook his head. No, not at all. It wasn't that. It's just, I didn't realize how much I've been overlooking. Not just with the contract, but with everything. He took a step closer, his gaze focused on her. I've been so wrapped up in work, in my own world, that I've missed a lot of things, people. Opportunities, including you. Mia's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say something like that. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I mean that I've been so caught up in my own success, I haven't taken the time to notice the people who actually help make it happen. Travis said, his tone honest, almost regretful. And you, Mia, are one of those people. You've got more potential than you give yourself credit for. His words hit her like a wave. She stood still, unable to fully process what he was saying. Was he offering her more than just a job? Was he asking her to be a part of something bigger? She didn't know. But for the first time, she felt like she mattered. I'm still not sure if I'm ready for all that, Mia said softly. I don't know if I'm cut out for something that big. Travis gave her a small, understanding smile. I get it. And you don't have to decide now. But just know the offer is there. Whenever you're ready. He paused for a moment, then added, You've got something special, Mia. I see it. With that, he turned to leave, but not before looking back at her one last time. Mia stood there, staring after him as the door closed softly behind him. The quiet of the restaurant seemed to swallow her whole, but in that moment, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, acknowledged in a way she never had before. Maybe she wasn't just a waitress. Maybe, for once, she could be something more. Mia walked through the bustling streets of Manhattan, her mind racing. It had been a few days since Travis's offer, and every time she thought about it, the weight of the decision seemed heavier. She had spent years working hard, day in and day out, never expecting much more than what she had. But now, with this opportunity staring her in the face, she wasn't sure she was ready to leave the comfort of what she knew for something that felt so uncertain. She had always been the quiet one, the observer, never the one to stand out. And yet here she was, on the cusp of something that could change her life. She took a deep breath as she entered the restaurant for her evening shift, the familiar sounds of clinking silverware and chatter filling the air. But tonight, the atmosphere felt different. It was quieter, almost as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for her next move. She moved through the dining area, greeting the guests with a polite smile, but her mind kept drifting back to the conversation with Travis. He had seen something in her, something she hadn't even known was there. And now, the thought of taking that next step felt both thrilling and terrifying. As she approached a table to take an order, she caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Travis. He was sitting alone, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a more thoughtful, almost weary expression. For a moment, Mia hesitated, unsure if she should approach him. But something about the way he looked made her walk toward him. Hey, Travis, she said, her voice a little shaky, but steady enough. He looked up, his face lighting up slightly when he saw her. Mia, he said, his tone warm but not overly familiar. I didn't expect to see you tonight. She smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I work here, she said, gesturing around the restaurant. But I wanted to talk to you. Travis raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. About what? Mia took a deep breath. About your offer. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm not sure I'm ready for a change. I've spent my whole life just getting by, and this feels huge. Travis studied her for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. I get it. It's a big step. But Mia, sometimes it's the biggest changes that bring the most growth. You've got potential. I've seen it. Mia shifted uncomfortably, looking down at the table. I don't know if I'm ready to leave this life behind, she admitted quietly. This is what I know. Travis leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense but kind. You don't have to leave everything behind. This opportunity, it's not about forgetting where you came from. It's about using what you already have to do more. To make a bigger impact. His words hit her differently this time. There was sincerity in his voice, an assurance that Mia hadn't heard before. I'm scared, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Travis nodded, his expression softening. That's okay, he said gently. Being scared just means you care about what's next. It means you're thinking about it seriously. But don't let fear hold you back. Mia met his gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what to do, but for the first time, she felt like she had a choice. I'll think about it, she said, her voice firming up. Travis smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. Take all the time you need. he said, his tone warm. I'm not going anywhere. As she walked away, Mia felt something shift inside her. The decision wasn't easy, and it wouldn't come quickly, but now she knew one thing for certain: she was no longer invisible. Mia spent the next few days in a whirlwind of thought. Every time she walked into the restaurant, her mind drifted back to Travis's offer. She couldn't ignore the excitement it stirred in her, but she also couldn't escape the doubts that followed closely behind. It was the same routine: serve the customers, clean the tables, and wait for the night to end. But the world around her seemed quieter now, like the hum of the restaurant couldn't drown out the questions swirling in her mind. Could she really do it? Could she leave behind everything she had known for something so uncertain? It was easier to stay in the familiar. The problem was, every time she tried to ignore the offer, something deep inside her wouldn't let it go. One evening, just as the dinner rush started to wind down, she found herself standing at the counter, wiping down the surface as her thoughts ran wild. The soft murmur of the other staff working around her barely registered as she worked. It was just another typical evening. But then the door opened. Mia looked up, expecting the usual wave of customers, but instead, it was Travis. He walked in with his usual confidence, but there was something different in his demeanor. This time, his eyes weren't scanning the room, calculating everything in his path. Instead, he was looking for her. Mia felt a knot tighten in her stomach as he made his way over to her. "Mia," he said with a nod. "Got a minute?" His voice was softer than she remembered, almost inviting. She wiped her hands on her apron, her nerves suddenly creeping up on her. "Of course," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. He motioned for her to follow him as he walked toward a quieter corner of the restaurant. Mia followed, her heart pounding in her chest. He turned to face her, his expression serious but not unkind. "I know you've been thinking about what I said," Travis began. "And I understand that it's a big decision. But I wanted to remind you that this isn't just about a job. It's about something bigger." Mia met his gaze, unsure of how to respond. The words were stuck in her throat, but there was something about the way he looked at her that made her feel like she wasn't just being seen, but truly understood. "I don't want you to think that this is something you have to decide on the spot," Travis continued. "Take your time. But I do want you to know that you're not just another person in the crowd. You have something valuable to offer, and I believe you can make a real impact." Mia felt a wave of emotion rise within her. She had always lived her life as part of the background, never the one to take center stage, never the one to be noticed. But now, here she was, standing in front of someone who believed in her potential. It was overwhelming. She swallowed hard, trying to push down the lump in her throat. "I don't know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've always been just a waitress. This is all I know." Travis stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You're so much more than that, Mia. I've seen it. Don't sell yourself short." He paused, then added, "You deserve more than this. And if you're ready, I'll be here to help you take that next step." Mia's heart was racing, her mind spinning. She had never imagined a life beyond the restaurant, beyond the routine she had built. But now, the thought of leaving all that behind, of stepping into something new, something bigger, felt both terrifying and exhilarating. She wasn't sure what she would do, but in that moment, she realized that the decision wasn't just about taking a job. It was about taking a chance on herself. "I'll think about it," she said softly. Travis smiled, nodding. "Take all the time you need," he said, his voice warm. "Just know that the door is always open." Mia watched him leave, her mind still racing. As the last of the customers trickled out, and the restaurant quieted down, she found herself standing still for a long moment, the weight of the choice ahead of her heavy in her chest. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a new beginning. Mia walked into the restaurant the next evening, her heart beating faster than usual. The decision still weighed heavily on her mind. She had spent the past 24 hours thinking about what Travis had said. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear his voice telling her that she was more than just a waitress, that she had something valuable to offer. It was hard for her to accept that. She had spent so long living in the background, never thinking of herself as someone with potential. But now, after everything that had happened, she couldn't ignore the possibility of something more. She walked through the kitchen, greeting the staff with a familiar smile, but her thoughts were elsewhere. As she set down a tray of drinks for a table, her mind wandered back to the conversation with Travis. Was she really ready to take a leap into the unknown? Was she ready to leave behind everything she had worked for? "Mia!" her manager called, snapping her back to reality. "Can you take table 5? They're asking for you specifically." Mia nodded quickly, her heart skipping a beat. Table 5. She had served them several times before, but tonight, it felt different. As she approached the table, she noticed that it wasn't just any group of regulars. It was Travis, sitting with a couple of other people, their conversations seemingly animated. She paused for a moment, gathering herself before walking over to them. "Good evening, Mr. Anderson," she said, her voice calm, though her insides were anything but. Travis looked up, his face breaking into a smile as he saw her. "Mia," he greeted her warmly. "I hope we're not interrupting your evening." Mia felt her nerves settle slightly at his friendly tone. "Not at all," she said, taking a deep breath. "What can I get for you tonight?" As she took their orders, the conversation shifted to something more casual, and for the first time, Mia felt at ease. The group was friendly, and Travis's presence wasn't as intimidating as it had been in the past. It was as if the walls between them had slowly started to come down. After she served the drinks and meals, Travis caught her eye again. "Mia," he said, his voice more serious now. "How are you doing?" She hesitated, unsure of how to respond. She wasn't sure how to explain the whirlwind of emotions she had been feeling. I'm doing well," she said, forcing a smile. "Just trying to figure things out." He studied her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I know I've put a lot on your plate lately," he said, his tone softening. "But I just want you to know that you don't have to make any decisions right away. Take your time." Mia nodded, though her thoughts were racing. She appreciated his patience, but the uncertainty still lingered. She wasn't sure she was ready to take that next step, but at the same time, she didn't want to ignore the opportunity in front of her. As the evening went on, Mia continued to serve the table, her mind now more focused on her work. But every time she glanced at Travis, she felt the weight of his gaze on her, like he was waiting for her to make a decision. By the end of the night, after the last guests had left, Mia found herself standing in the empty restaurant, looking around at the familiar surroundings. She had always found comfort in the routine, in the simple act of serving others. But now, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more out there for her. She wasn't sure what it was, but for the first time, she felt like she had a chance to find out. Mia woke up the next morning to the sound of her alarm clock blaring, signaling the start of another workday. But today felt different. She wasn't sure why, but the weight of her decision hung in the air, heavy but not oppressive. As she got ready for work, the thought of Travis's offer kept creeping back into her mind. She wasn't used to feeling like this, like she had a real choice, like there was something more waiting for her if she could just take that first step. The morning passed quickly, and before she knew it, she was back at Le Petit Bistro, walking through the door as if she were entering a familiar, safe space. But today, nothing felt quite the same. The routine was there, yes, but there was a sense of anticipation in the air that she couldn't ignore. Her shift started normally enough, taking orders, serving drinks, and clearing tables, but her mind kept returning to the offer. Every time she passed by Travis's usual spot, she couldn't help but wonder what her life would be like if she said yes. Could she really leave everything she had known behind? She wasn't sure, but she couldn't ignore the pull, the possibility of something more. It wasn't until late afternoon, as the dinner rush began, that Mia found herself standing in the kitchen, staring at the door that led to the dining room. She felt a hand on her shoulder, and when she turned around, it was her manager, Pierre. "Hey, Mia," he said with a smile. "Travis is here. He's waiting for you." Mia's heart skipped a beat. Travis. She hadn't expected him to come in today. Not after their conversation the other night. But as she walked through the kitchen and made her way toward his table, her nerves flared up again. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, and with each step, she wondered if she was ready for what might come next. When she reached the table, Travis stood up to greet her, a warm smile on his face. "Mia," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of something else behind it. "I was hoping we could talk." Mia nodded, her mind racing. "Of course," she said, pulling out a chair and sitting down across from him. Travis didn't waste any time. "I know you've been thinking about my offer," he said, his tone more serious now. "But I wanted to let you know that there's no rush. You don't have to make a decision today or tomorrow. Just whenever you're ready." Mia felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had been so afraid of making the wrong choice, but hearing him say that took the pressure off, even if just a little. "I appreciate that," she said quietly, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her napkin. "I've been thinking about it a lot, actually." Travis leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know it's a big decision," he said. "And I want you to take your time. But I also want you to know that this isn't just about the job. It's about giving you the chance to do something with the talents you already have. I've seen it, Mia. You've got a lot to offer, more than you probably realize." Mia felt a lump form in her throat as his words settled in. It wasn't just the offer of a job, it was the recognition, the belief in her that she had never had before. She had always kept her head down, staying out of the spotlight, doing her work without thinking about what came next. But now, Travis was offering her something more. Something that could change everything. She took a deep breath and looked him in the eye. "I'm scared," she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Travis smiled, his gaze softening. "I think that's normal," he said. "But don't let fear stop you from going after what you deserve. This isn't about changing who you are, it's about giving you the opportunity to show the world what you're capable of." Mia looked down, her mind racing. It felt like everything was on the line, but at the same time, it felt like the beginning of something new, something exciting. She wasn't sure if she was ready to make that leap, but in this moment, she felt like she was at the edge of something big. "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice steadied but filled with uncertainty. Travis nodded, his smile never fading. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I'll be here when you're ready." Mia sat there for a moment after he left, the restaurant now quieter than before. The decision still loomed, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was standing still. She had a choice now, and that in itself was something new. The evening was quiet as Mia closed the door behind her, stepping into the cool night air. The city lights flickered around her, a familiar sight that felt different tonight. She had walked through the same streets 1,000 times, but now, it felt like she was walking towards something unknown, something that was all hers to discover. The decision had been made. She wasn't sure when exactly it happened, but somewhere between the conversations with Travis, the quiet moments spent in her own thoughts, and the endless questions that kept her up at night, she realized that she had made a choice. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was someone with a future, someone who had something to offer. As she walked toward her apartment, the weight of that realization settled in, and for the first time in a long time, Mia felt a sense of peace. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from everything being figured out, but the kind that came from knowing that she was no longer running away from what she wanted. The world felt bigger now, full of possibility. She didn't need all the answers, not yet. All she needed was the courage to step forward. The next morning, Mia walked into Le Petit Bistro with a new sense of purpose. The usual hustle and bustle of the restaurant greeted her, but today, she was different. She moved with a quiet confidence, her steps light and sure. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Her actions spoke for themselves. As she served the customers, her thoughts were clear. She knew what she was capable of now, and that was enough. When Travis came in later that afternoon, Mia saw him from across the room. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, there was a quiet understanding between them. No words were exchanged, but there didn't need to be. She had made her choice. She was ready. Travis smiled at her as he took his seat, his usual self-assuredness in place. But there was something different in the way he looked at her. It wasn't just a casual glance. It was a look of acknowledgment, as if he saw something in her that no one else had. Mia nodded to him as she passed by, her smile small but genuine. She didn't need anything more from him. She had already taken the most important step, she had taken it for herself. As the night wore on and the restaurant began to quiet down, Mia found herself standing in front of the window, looking out at the city. The streetlights cast a soft glow on the pavement, and the world seemed to stretch out before her, endless and full of promise. For the first time in her life, Mia felt like she had all the time in the world. She wasn't rushing to find something or someone. She wasn't waiting for approval or permission. She was simply living, embracing the unknown with open arms. As the last few customers left and the restaurant doors closed for the night, Mia turned and took one last look at the empty dining room. It had been her world for so long, but now, it felt like the beginning of something new. And with that, she stepped outside into the night, ready for whatever came next. The decision wasn't easy, but sometimes, the hardest choices lead to the most rewarding paths.